Hi, this is Professor Mike Strain, Northern Michigan University Olson Library. In today's video, we're going to talk about APA style as it applies to a paper. I've got a sample paper here. This is actually an excerpt of a master's thesis that was written a number of years ago. We're going to start off with the title page. Now, double check with your instructor to see how they want your title page to be formatted as far as what components are on it. I've chosen more of a middle route, and we'll go from there. You have the running head up on top. I've got a separate video that shows you how to insert the page number in the running head. We're not going to cover that here. I've got the title of the paper. Every significant word is capitalized. Underneath that, I have the name of the author, Northern Michigan University, and the date of the paper. Going on to the second page, we have a direct quote. When you have a direct quote that is fewer than 40 words, you include it as part of the narrative. Also, make sure you put quotation marks around it. The sentence does not end at the end of the quotation. The sentence ends after the in-text citation. The standard format for an in-text citation in APA style is author or authors, comma, publication year, and if it's a direct quote, then you include the page number. Now, I included this example because this is from a web page. Web pages don't have page numbers. So APA indicates that you need to provide the name of the section where that direct quote came from, count the number of paragraphs below that section, and indicate the paragraph number. So in this case, this direct quote came from this web page written by Brockman, Tepper, and McNeil. The date on the web page was 2009. The section name was "Why is it important?" followed by the word section, and in short for paragraph. Then you have the period following the parentheses. Further on down, we have a work by Brady and Woodward. In this case, instead of having everything provided at the end of the sentence in parentheses, this author decided they were going to introduce a block quotation, and you put the authors. When you have the authors outside of parentheses, you use the word and, A-N-D, as opposed to an and sign. You also indicate the year in parentheses. This happens to be a direct quote that is 40 or more words, so it is a block quote. The sentence or the quote ends with the period. Following that, you include the page number or page numbers in this case where that quote appeared. That is not a complete sentence. It does not end in a period. The next paragraph, we have some numbers. So they were talking about out of 100 organizations, when you have numbers, for the most part, when you're talking about numbers, when you have values that are below 10, basically single digits, you spell them out as words. 10 and above, you use numerals. There are some exceptions to that. The APA manual talks about it. Also, some other resources talk about it. So in this case, out of 100 organizations, APA really doesn't use fractions that much. They instead will use words. So this is 2/3 reported a lack. And then we have a hyphenated last name for the author and the year. Because this is not a direct quote, you don't have to provide the page number, even if it is statistics. Even when you're citing statistics, you no longer have to provide the page number. That was a big change in the 6th edition published in 2010. So the next sentence was paraphrased from the Brockman work. The APA rule is that when you cite 3, 4, or 5 authors, the subsequent time, you use at all. In this case, we had 3 authors, so we write Brockman space ET space AL period, comma, followed by the year. You would use this at all format, whether you're citing parenthetically or whether you're citing as part of the narrative outside parentheses. We further have a sentence for Brungart, 1997. The next thing we have is discussing decades. So what we have here, it is stated in this paper as follows. In the 1930s, John Dewey gave his opinion. APA for decades, or any situation where you're dealing with years, it does not use an apostrophe. So we have 1930S. There's no apostrophe between the 0 and the S. The next thing that we have is a direct quote from a work written by Dewey. And so we have Dewey outside parentheses followed by the year in parentheses because we want to introduce his statement, and it's a combination of a paraphrase of his statement and also a direct quote of what he said, what he wrote. So we have that as part of the narrative, and then at the end of that direct quote, we have the page number where it appears in this work. In this case, page 34. At the end of the parentheses is the period. That is the end of the sentence. Next thing we have is make sure that you capitalize all proper names. So in this case, we have the name of a high school. Since high school is part of its official name, we have Shabazz High School. Let's also talk numbers. The sentence here, we have each student is allowed 7 absences per quarter per class. When you have values that are below 10, for the most part, you write them out as words. In this case, we have the word 7. Values 10 and above, multiple digits, for the most part, you write them as numerals, not as words. There are some exceptions to that rule, and Chapter 4 in the APA manual talks about those exceptions. The next thing we have here is a value of percent. APA does not spell out the word percent. Always you have a numeral regardless of whether it's a single digit below 10 or higher. You're going to write it as a numeral, followed immediately by the percent sign, no space in between. The last example I have here is they're talking about 12 points of leadership. The value is 10 and above, write it as a numeral. Then we have other values that are partial, like 11.8 units of gain. Write it just the way it's indicated. And we're going to end this here. Look at my next video, which talks about how to identify different components in references. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate to contact me. Thank you.